Hey, good afternoon. My name is Richard. Welcome to our show. This is Ask for Help. And Brian is here somewhere. I see a printer going, but I don't see Brian. But I know he's here.
Living in the dark. He's living in the darkness. All that crazy stuff. I don't know. Here I am. Hello, everybody.
There we go.
I was trying to do something cool because you know what we need to bring back? We need to bring back, like, disco stuff. I don't know if this is going to transition right. Welcome to the joys of OBS, Droid Cam, and all that. Anyways, I got black lights behind me, and black lights on printers look pretty cool. So,
they do.
Yeah, you got to go pick up something like that down the road there. But how is everyone? Happy Sunday. I apologize. I haven't even pulled up the chat yet. So all that nasty stuff you guys are saying to me, I'm not seeing it yet. So get it in while you have your chance.
If you guys are hearing any audio issues, please let us know because this is our first time back in many weeks, and we might have to tweak things just a little bit.
Yeah. This thing, not even hooked up yet. I won't lie. So you're going through the Logitech webcam, okay? So
Brian's audio sucks today. We'll just say that.
Yeah, pretty
and
much.
My forehead is super shiny. I hope I'm not blinding anybody out there today.
Bald! My eyes! Yes. Yeah, he got the summer shave after the heat left. Talk about smart thoughts there.
Yes. I decided to shave my head down because this is how I like to keep my hair, honestly. I don't mind being old.
So I took the shavings and I crammed them in somewhere in here. You might see a couple white streaks. Yeah. His loss is my gain, so what can I say?
There we go. Hey, welcome everybody to Ask for Help. We are back. We're back on Sundays at 12 noon. We are not going to be taking any guff from the rest of the year. We're going to hit the last quarter of 2021 really hard. We got brand new shows coming up for you. We're going to show you a whole bunch of stuff, how to fix things, and we're going to get back to exactly what we do best. Right, Bri?
What do we do best? We seem to fail at everything I do. So.
Well, I wouldn't say you fail.
You just don't win. No,
that's not failure.
We're working on a lot of stuff here. As you may have noticed, we've been absent. Yes. And we were just trying some different things because, like various different areas of the world, we have had some economical ups and downs, and we've had some society ups and downs. And I don't care what opinion everyone has, the fact is it's been jostly for everybody.
Yes.
So now, and actually, ironically, it's no better today, but we made a decision about what direction we were going September forward, and this is the result. And this is what we're going to be seeing is a lot more action on the channel again. We're going to be seeing, again, bringing back the creativity. A 3D printing space, as you've noticed, has been a little dry, not even with us, but with everyone in general. In fact, I've had a hard time finding new and innovative 3D printing videos to watch on my off time. So I understand your guys' grief first and foremost. And for Richard and myself, we have had printer issues galore. With no rational reason. We had lots of smoky weather here. We had some real hot temperatures. We've had some humid days. And certain things just haven't been lined up. And if you guys have noticed, I certainly have noticed, the supply chain for 3D printer parts has just gone kaput. Trying to get parts. A great example. Yesterday, I just got this PT100 amplifier, Triangle Labs. This was the last one in stock. There are no more available, and all you can get on Amazon right now is NTC 3950 thermistors, which we will be talking about in a future video, why you kind of want to avoid those.
Yeah.
But when our printers went down, it was like a week or two to get them going again. So Richard and I have been playing with our non-3D printer technologies over the last few months. And you may be seeing this week, we dropped our video on the laser engraver, which, to be honest, we wanted to give it a good run before we gave you an actual review. So that's why it took almost 2 months, really. But we have been using this thing nonstop. He hasn't burnt out the laser, which is a fear many people have. And fingers crossed, because if you need one, good luck waiting.
Yeah.
And for myself, you may have noticed my photos of the CNC, and I want to give you guys a little sneak peek of what I've been doing here, if that's all right, Richard.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're going to try and, low-tech technology move and turn this camera, and you're going to be noticing this ominous-looking cube in this room. And yeah, there's stuff everywhere in here. This is my crafting room right now, so it's kind of a mess. But what we got here, if I go and take my high-quality nail door hinge setup, I've got myself a CNC box with a built-in light. So I have been working on wood carving here, testing out the little ComGrow Robo CNC here before we give you guys a full review. And why are we doing this? Because I truly believe that the combination of CNC, laser engraver, and 3D printing is like the ultimate combination for making whatever you want. So this thing, I've been putting it through its paces. As you can see, I got dust everywhere. I still don't have a fume extractor set up. It's a bit of a mess, but we are getting there. So that's been my kind of, days I'm not working project here, if you will. But we are getting there. We are so darn close to getting all the content ready to go here.
Yeah, I just got an eBay message here about something I was looking at. We have had a full summer of activity. I was going out to Okotoks every weekend for the most part. I've had knee issues. Yes, Dominic says it sucks getting old. And I agree with that. I'm 56 years old, and yes, it does suck getting old. So, with that said, knee issues, back issues, trying to start a new business or an extension of what we do to the public. And during COVID, as the Delta variant became worse and worse, and it just, maybe it was the wrong time. Maybe we didn't advertise it enough. Maybe we were in the wrong venue. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But at the end of the day, I just want to say it was a great experience. It was definitely a learning experience. I think that online is probably a better venue for us to launch to the regular population. But that being said, I think that the channel suffered over the summer, and I apologize to everybody for that. And that's on me. For the most part, that's on me. So now we're back. We're going to end the year big, and we've got a lot of great things coming your way. We're going to do some Halloween stuff this year. We're going to have a regular Halloween show that we do like we've done in the past. And we're going to have a Christmas show like we've done in the past. And we want to bring you guys...
It's troublesome up here. It seems the moment I brought him home, everything fell apart. Just saying.
Well, doesn't he have parts that are broken too?
Well, no more crippled than the rest of us. I mean, he kind of glued his hands on backwards, so he walks around like this.
Ah, gotcha. All right.
No, we'll get her there.
Let's get into what's going on here in the chat. And it seems like you could have 3 robot arms set up for all 3.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting comment by King Master Lord there. Now, just for those of you who don't know, my actual education was in robotics. And so actually that's on my to-do list, is to build a 3-axis robot now that I have all the kinematic setups for it. But talking about robotics, one thing that many may not realize is that robot arms have been used in not so much 3D printing, but in the CNC realm for decades. And a great example is there was a company about 15 years ago that was using commercial robots with a big drill on it, and they actually put foam on a spindle and spun it around, and they would carve life-size statues, recreations out of foam, so that they could be prepped for like museum exhibits and things like that. And it's amazing the level of precision you can get with something like that. But the caveat is if you think XYZ is challenging, wait until you add rotational things and you have to figure out the exact rotational axes, and you're limited on your motion to like 345 degrees per axis, and then programming your control. And there's a whole world of robotic control we could get into. Now, when it comes to 3D printing itself as an additive technology, basically your biggest challenge is getting around gravity. If you can get around gravity, then you can basically print however you want from any location. And NASA has been actually dealing with these challenges when trying to 3D print their parts in space with their 3D printer on the ISS. Because unlike on Earth, your filament, let's say if you print something in air, or a blob falls off your extruder, it's not going to fall. It's actually going to stick to the hot end, or it's going to bubble away, so you have to keep it all enclosed. There's a whole different factor in 3D printing that we rely on gravity to make things consistent. And so I highly recommend, if you ever get a chance, go to NASA's website and look into their space 3D printer that's been on the ISS, and look at how slow they print and how carefully they print, because they have to. And that's really my lesson of the week, is that when in doubt, slow down your prints. I know it seems like a bit of a deviation here, but this has been actually one of my many challenges lately, is under the assumption that if I have the right heating elements and all that, I can rip my hot end around without issue. The fact is there are still limiters on things like your nozzle size. Even if you have it at 400 degrees, you can't instantly pass through filament that fast. So when in doubt, slow it down. And we will be talking more, because I'm seeing a lot of regurgitated threads this year about leaving your printer alone 24 hours a day. I want to show you how safe that truly is now. So we'll be getting to that in the coming weeks. We've got so much planned content here. And, just reading the chat here, it looks like a lot of you aren't having problems. So maybe we're a bunch of idiots this week.
We could be. We do have a couple of questions here. LB Sharp is up first, and he says, I have a CR-10 using Marlin 1.1.9 direct drive kit, BL Touch, Micro Swiss hot end. I want to upgrade to a dual drive unit by making the X-axis wider. And then the second part of his question, we'll just send that up. He says, and use 2 orbiter extruders to lower height. If I do this, will I be forced to upgrade Marlin and or motherboard? The reason for this is so one drive will use Nylon X, etc., and the other use PVA. Yep. So what you're talking about there, because we haven't covered it very well, and actually, I apologize. This is going to be a bit of a long-winded response here. The technology you're talking about is IDEX, Independent Dual Extruders. And a great example of it, and when a manufacturer goes wrong, I'm so sorry, because I'm sure a certain individual might beat me later for this, but is the WeDo X40. I've got this monstrosity sitting right off to the side because I have been having to recode the firmware nonstop, and just to get it operating has been an absolute nightmare. So IDEX is that you have an extruder on one side, an extruder on the other side, and you have parking positions on the outside. I apologize again, this is not a great angle and my monitor's in the way here, but this guy here, if set up correctly, is a very efficient dual nozzle system, both because you can run 2 separate materials versus a mixing nozzle, and with these ones as well too, you can actually set independent X or Z offsets as well as the X and Y. So if your nozzles are at just slightly a different height, you don't have to worry about them being perfectly level to the bed relative to each other, because you're parking the other one before you swap it in. So IDEX is, right now, as far as we are concerned, the best way to get a dual extruder setup. But there are caveats on the design. And the first question there about getting a new motherboard, absolutely, you should get a new motherboard, because you need to drive an additional extruder and you need to drive an additional X motor. And most motherboards, at most, have 5 connections. They might have one for an additional extruder motor, but not for the additional X motor that needs to run independently. So we always recommend to go with a better quality board, a large. You could go to a Duet if your budget's out of the park there. But even on some of these, the Octopus boards and the Spiders and stuff that are designed for the Vorons, they just give you so much expandability. I've got a couple off here to the side we can look at if we need to. But more is better in this case, and usually you're getting more than just additional extruder slots. You're also getting
better quality components, higher rated MOSFETs, etc., etc. So spend a little bit of extra money, get the good quality motherboard. As for setting up IDEX on a pre-made machine, there are some companies out there currently doing some real nice IDEX conversion kits. I haven't tried any of them yet, but the TLDR is it's going to convert your X-axis into a linear rail, and you're going to have independent carriages. You may need to upgrade your hot end as well, because most people say if you're spending that money, go and get your E3D V6 while you're at it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a heck of an upgrade. It's a little, I don't know, it's going to be kind of a pain in the butt. It's a very much intermediate plus install. So if that's something you're definitely interested in, I would first read into IDEX machines, understand their limits, and understand how they work before you go down that route of doing that. But with this one right here, I know we were just talking about PVA. Well, one of the things on this machine is PVA right now. So once I get that going, a lot of it, honestly, is nozzle alignment. And once you got that, it should be fine.
Now, Ben makes a great point here. He says, not only are you going to need an extruder motor, but you're going to need that second hot end, a thermistor, a heater cartridge, and you got to make sure that that all works. Now, our next question comes from Trevor. He says, I just installed a BL Touch on my Ender 3 V2 2.4.7. When I tell it to home, the only thing it does is probe goes up and down a couple of times, and then it acts like if it was homed. There's what you're probably experiencing there is you are now going to be getting into the firmware a little bit. So there's something that probably is not working properly in the firmware, because it should do that test when you turn it on. It will not do that test when it is actually probing. It should actually probe in 9 spots. So I believe there's something wrong in the firmware, or you have some connections. The signal wire is not connected correctly. That would be my suggestion.
I was going to say, in my experience, when I've seen that, and I mean, don't take this as the Bible, just make sure to do your research first, is that for some of the Creality boards, their contacts for the X end stop limit, the white and black wire, are actually backwards.
Yes.
And when you see something like that sometimes, if it goes to home and it goes to the center of the bed and then drops the pin and immediately retracts it, that means the motherboard is thinking that it has hit the bed already. And then it goes up and does its thing, drops it down, and stays in the same position. Most of the time, that is because of that end stop not being connected correctly. So I would triple check. Unfortunately, there are so many different kits now for BL Touch hookups. And myself, I haven't owned an Ender 3 since the Pro. I have all the original ones here, but I have not upgraded to a V2. I don't know if the motherboard corrected that wiring issue, but I do know on the older boards, I don't have any in front of me here right now. Those boards did have that issue.
All right, our next question comes from Accord XTC. He says, I really want to do an Octoprint for my Ender 3 and integrate with Home Assistant. Any chance you'll do an Octoprint video sometime in the future? Thanks. As a matter of fact, yes. We are going, that is in our list of things to do. We're going to take you through installing Octoprint, not only for your existing printers. We'll show you how to do the complete setup, but we are going to show you how to add it into something that's also using other firmware or management software, where you're actually using the Raspberry Pi as the main brain for your 3D printer. So we're going to, in other words, we're going to be talking about Klipper in upcoming episodes.
Yeah, and as you can see here, I'm actually, that CR10 we showed earlier is running off Klipper and Octoprint right here. So, we are just getting the ins and outs sorted out of a lot of little bugs, the best optimization packages and all that. And we'll be bringing that to you guys shortly. Now, the simple answer at the end of the day is, if you're going to be looking into Octoprint, before you even set it all up, please, please, please get a good quality USB cable for your printer, because that is mission critical. And that's where I've seen the majority of people's failures, is where they use the cheap blue cables that came with their printer. And it only takes a few bits for it to say, you know what, I can't talk to it anymore, and it just quits sending data to the printer.
There you go. Now, we have our next question comes from Peter Reynolds. He says, is cleaning your filament a good idea on occasion? Yes, it is. You can also use a sponge. There's several different designs out there that will hold a sponge around the filament so that as the filament's being drawn into the machine, it's cleaning the filament that is going in. And people call them oilers. You can use oilers. I'm not a big fan of oilers, but because I think they introduce another material that's just not necessary. So,
yeah. The oiler stuff, you got to remember at the end of the day, if you are introducing oil into your hot end, number one, you're introducing something that can flash.
Yeah.
Which those of you, if you ever went through high school, were taught you don't add cold oil to boiling oil because it will explode on you.
Yes.
Now, this is, of course, at a microscopic scale. But the other thing, too, is if you add oil in there and you're pushing your, if you add too much, basically, and you're pushing your filament through, at some point, some of that oil is going to come out where your nozzle comes out, or where your filament comes out, instead of additional filament. What does that result in? Well, you're not going to get as smooth of a surface texture at best. And at worst case, if it does have contaminants and gunk in it and all that, you might get little black scores all over your print, which you don't want. I know a lot of people use oilers to get around the, let's just say, blockades or little challenges with all metal hot ends. I can tell you right now, it's not necessary. In fact, slowing it down will do you more than just for the oiling there.
Yeah.
I've seen some people condition hot ends too, but the last conditioning video I saw was someone who actually sprayed PTFE lube inside the extruder, which, yeah, makes sense, except for the fact that now the moment you go over that boiling point, it's no different than having a tube right down in there. So, you know, I won't lie to you guys, there is a lot of bad advice out there. There really, really is. So just do your own research and don't just assume, even something that we say, don't assume what we say is the Bible. Go and do a little bit of research and understand what you're mechanically doing these machines. It's very easy to make a machine work worse than when you got it out of the box. And then getting back to that, not very fun.
yeah, that's true. Okay, so our next question is from Srireg? I hope I got that. I butchered that, I'm sure. He says, hey, so I'm having this problem with my layers, and one of the layers' shell doesn't print, and it comes very weak. Any possible solution? By the way, love your videos, guys. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
But I think what's happening is you're getting under extrusion in areas.
Let's see if I'm sure I got a bucket of under extrusion down here, because that's been my challenge lately.
And that can be solved by a couple of things, but the issue is usually caused by under extrusion. So your filament is getting caught up somewhere. If your printer is printing fine. The other thing is you could have too much tension on your print or on your filament going in. So you may want to just loosen up that spring a little bit so that there's a little bit more room and it's not crushing the filament between the two gears. Brian?
Yeah, I was digging down the rabbit hole to try and find something here. Let's see if this shows up on macro. Maybe not. We'll see here.
Probably not.
Probably not. So anyways, what you can see here maybe is a little bit of layer separation. Let's see if I can turn these lights away from me. How about that? Yeah, is that going to work?
It's blown out.
Okay. How about in the dark? Nope. Okay, this is a losing battle. Anyways, what we got here, way back, we got too much light fill, because of course I'm dealing with white filament here, is you've got filament that's gapping. Maybe you can see it now there a little bit around there. And that's what happens when you print too quickly sometimes, is if the extruder can't push that filament effectively through the nozzle at the same rate that you're moving, then you'll start to see it get thinner and thinner, and then suddenly it will blob as it reaches that melting point that it can effectively and the back pressure to shove it through. Under extrusion is basically that, is when It just can't effectively get the desired flow rate out of the nozzle, and it's either forced through by excess pressure from your extruder, or there's something blocking it that eventually loosens itself up and shoots out. So generally, under extrusion can mean one of two things. You're printing too fast or you're printing too cool. Or you've got other issues with your hot end, but let's presume that your hot end is set up properly. Our key message of the week, slow it down. It's better to have stringing, and it's really easy to clean up stringing.
Yep.
It's not so easy to repair under extrusion. Now, on the worst case scenarios, you get what we call delamination, which is where it looks like it's all printed properly, but then you take the material and you bend it a little bit, and you'll start seeing the layers separate. That's where it came out of the extruder, but it wasn't hot enough to melt to itself. So we're going to go right back to like 20. When did we start doing videos? Like 2017?
4 years ago this August or October.
Yeah, we're going to go back to that point. Temperature towers. Please print a temperature tower with every new piece of material. If you don't want to do a temperature tower and you want to like have a bit more fun, get something like a Benchy and set it up to be a temperature tower where you know the measurement heights and look at the quality changes. But the TLDR is that heat will cause stringing if it's too high, and will cause under extrusion if it's too low, or if you have blockages in your hot end. So the temperature tower will show you, number one, if there's any blockages, because if there's a blockage and it's like 240 degrees, 230 degrees, then you know you need to clean your hot end. But if it's coming out nicely at 230, and then it's coming out nice at 220, it's coming out nice at 210, and then it starts going wonky around 205, 200, well, maybe your material needs to be printed a little bit hotter. Matter 3D is a great example of a PLA that likes to be printed around 215, 220 versus another material, let's say an Ortur or Filaments.ca, which can sometimes go through as low as 195. And there are reasons for that depending on the material compositions. So sometimes the hotter temperatures are better because you're dealing with stronger materials. Sometimes the cooler temperatures are better if you are looking for material that might be really soft and malleable and easy to work with. So that's why we recommend a temperature tower. It's the baseline, easiest way to find the nice point of your material. And once you've done that temperature tower, the greatest tool you can have in your lab is a Sharpie. Go onto your reel and write in the temperature and the speed that you did that test at, and then you know for the remainder of that roll, and potentially for future batches of that brand, what the ideal temperature is for you.
You know, DeWitt 3D, our good friend Tim, makes a great point. Wet filament can also cause these issues. Now, wet filament, when we talk about wet filament, we don't say it's physically wet. It's absorbed moisture molecules from the surrounding air. Now, what people get wrong about this, and I've seen it a few times where people have done videos where they've taken their filament and put it into a bucket of water for 24 hours, pulled it out, put it through their machine, and let it go. Well, that's not the same. That's not how vapor works, okay? So you really want to make sure that if you are hearing things like sizzling or popping or anything like that as your printer is printing, you'll know that you have too much moisture in your filament. Another sign of that, especially with PLA, is that it becomes brittle. So small chunks can break off. So you want to basically dry that as best you can. Bry's got some there.
No, this one's actually pretty good.
That's not
Alberta
bad.
is quite dry this summer, but if you can bend your filament like that and it doesn't snap on you, then that's actually probably a pretty good sign that it's not overly saturated with water. One thing I do actually is, because you don't hear crackling if you're pushing filament too quick. To hear a crackle, you have to basically boil the water inside that nozzle, which means that material has to be passing through slow enough on that block that your water is reaching about 100 degrees centigrade / 202 degrees Fahrenheit for our American friends to actually get the water to boil. And if you don't get to that point, then all you're really doing is printing a structure that has water molecules in it, which impacts the integrity. It will it'll change the surface to be a bit more rough when you run your fingers across it, and will cause lots of weird issues like stringing and all that. So we've talked about this before, and it's unfortunately it's at the back of the room. Let me grab it here for you guys. Get yourselves a food dehydrator. Get yourself a Sultan or something. Make sure you know the temperatures on there. This one is nice because if you look at the dial here, which I apologize, it's going to be all washed out. Sorry, guys. The dial there, this one goes up to 70 degrees Celsius. Now, don't use that as the set point for what your material is going to be. Do it at about 50 and start working your way up. You do that, you run in there for a few hours, and you'll find your filament when it comes out is going to seem more silky and smooth. That's a great sign that you removed material from it. You don't have to buy these expensive dehydrators. You don't have to buy the... I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here. The Sunlu Fila-Dryer, you don't got to buy one of those.
We both have one of those, and Sunlu has come out with a new dryer, and I have been approached about that. However, I don't believe that it's going to be much different. If you guys want us to get a hold of one, we will. But go ahead.
If there's no fan inside your dehydrator, it's not going to dehydrate, okay? Just because it has a heating element doesn't mean it effectively dries. And, I apologize to Sunlu because you're just the one example of the moment, but I've seen many products on the market. I think, in fact, the only one that I didn't critique about this was Ibos, the one that you've got, I think, which actually does have a fan.
Yes.
If you heat it up, yes, you're going to boil water. You're going to add condensation into the air. If you have no way of removing that from around your reel, all that's going to happen, especially with these ones where you're supposed to feed it out of the box into your machine, is all of that, the bottom end of your filament is going to boil off this water. It's going to sit as water vapor at the top and soak right into the top layers that are going immediately into your extruder.
Exactly.
So when I talk about buying the $50 Sultan, and that's $50 Canadian, guys, so it's cheaper than buggers. If you put their filament into that thing, it's designed explicitly to dry fruit. How does it do that? It blows hot air through the chamber and it vents out the top. So guess what? When it's pulling in new heat air and blasting that out, you're removing water from the filament permanently. And then, if you're doing this ahead of actually doing printing, put it inside a Ziploc bag. It doesn't have to be airtight. It doesn't have to be vacuum packed, but if you do have the vacuum packing, even better.
Yes.
If you just slap it in there and put it aside, it's going to stay dry for ages. Let's be honest. So there are little things, and we have seen filament manufacturers before where they've actually, even though their bags are vacuum packed, they do arrive moisture saturated. It's a very hard thing to measure. I don't blame them for it, but it's always a good idea to have a dehydrator handy. And we are in a dry climate here. For those of you who are on coastal climates or by lakes where your ambient humidity is 50, 60% and above, this is a must-have. But even in Alberta here, where it's 15 to 20%, you really need a dehydrator.
Absolutely. The other thing that you got to consider is that when you are placing or buying one of these filament dryers, is that convection is what you're looking for. And that's the drawing in of air and the way to expel air. So these food dehydrators do a great job. The one thing that manufacturers haven't figured out is that convection problem. So if it's moving, which some of them will have a rotating bed, you're going to pay a little bit more for that. But it's constantly moving. The air is constantly moving, and it's constantly expelling that moisture from the material. Now, Peter Reynolds is asking, between Mexol and Sunlu, which is the better filament dryer? I haven't looked at the Mexol one, but I think it's pretty similar to the Sunlu. So honestly, I would go with either the EBOS. Yeah. I would either go with the EBOS, or I would go with just a food dehydrator, which works very, very well. And
they're cheaper. Like the Sunlu goes for, it went for $90 at the time. I'm going to show you guys real quickly. I apologize because it gets me so mad how little it took to get this thing better? Because this kind of goes into Ben Brady's question, or rather statement, saying, I wish we could find a way to update the firmware on the filler dryer to allow for a higher temperature. I'm still looking into that. But for the time being, here's what you need to understand. And this is why this product was flawed, okay? So here's my modified one, which luckily you can't see my big glob of goo there because I was gluing in a Bowden tube. But you may notice mine looks a little different, and that's because I actually put aerogel foam on the inside to increase the insulation of the chamber. I've got thermal drawings to show why this has been an issue. But where the magic happens is when we open it up. And you'll notice on the inside, I've actually put this fan in here. So what this does is this is actually circulating the air on the inside and blowing down towards the bottom. Now, why am I doing that? Because on the front side here, you can see I've got a little bit of tape here, and right there is the element, the little temperature probe that this unit uses for running the heaters. So the bottom part here is all the heater, okay? If you actually take this off, there's a big coil that goes underneath this. And I can't understand Sunlu in this case. Well, I can, because they did it for protection, because, yeah. So what they did was they actually put that little thermistor, attached it directly to the metal plate. So as a result, the temperature that it was tuning to was the metal plate temperature. So when you put that thing up to 55 degrees, the metal plate would not get hotter than 55. But there is no possible way for the air in that chamber to match that metal plate at any time. As a result, the ambient air, I think I measured, it came in at 41 degrees Celsius max. Now that is not enough to even do anything when it comes to drying PLA, let alone other materials. So what the mod that I found online, what they suggested to do is to move that temperature element to the front of the case in open air. And when you do that, it's going to actually heat until the ambient air of the chamber gets up to 55 degrees, which is the maximum on the unit right now in firmware. Well, the problem with that is that, again, we deal with this convection issue where the bottom is going to be hotter than the top. So to resolve that, I actually got the blower fan, put it right in the front of the case, and actually have it blowing the air on that temperature probe itself so that I can get the air in there up to 55 degrees Celsius. Guess what? Now the unit actually works. So if you have a spare 24-volt 5015 fan laying around somewhere, or you want to order one on Amazon, that's all it takes to actually make this unit work. But for $80, I'm honestly pissed off that I got what I got when a food dehydrator for $50 does a better job out of the box. I hate to ramble on about this, guys, but this is the problem with these companies when they don't actually vet the products. They just rush it to the market.
Srirag, I hope I'm saying that right. He says, I have a roll of PLA which has a lot of moisture and I didn't use more of it. Is there any way I can save it because I used it only once or twice? How can I save for filament for a long term? And that's, basically what we've been saying. If you've got a food dehydrator, put it in there at about 50 or 60 degrees for about 5 or 6 hours. Let it do what it has to do. Then take it out, put it into a Ziploc bag. If you've got a desiccant pack, throw that in there with it, Ziploc it, try and get as much air out of it as you can, and then put it back on your shelf. That will help you to preserve that filament over the long term. And every time that you use it, make sure that it's been dried and that it's been used properly. Now, Dominic's got another question that's very similar to that. He says, I have a convection oven with a dehydrate function. If I set the temp to 125 Fahrenheit, it swings back and forth between 120 and 135. Is that okay? Yes, it is. It's a little hot, but it will do the job. I would try and lower that a little bit lower if you can.
Yeah, you know what? 135 Fahrenheit's coming to 57.2. So if you can ensure that it really is not swinging above that, you're going to be great. But here's my trick, guys, okay? Anytime you're doing any kind of filament drying, when you put your reel in, number one, please do not put this reel like face down on the metal grates, because the metal grates will conduct more
Yes.
heat and can get hotter. Find a way. A great example is like silicone cookie sheets. You can get those for cheap at the store.
Yep.
Get something like that to help prevent this reel from overheating, because this is usually ABS or similar. It doesn't take much for this to melt. But what I do is anytime I'm drying filament, I set up something like this. I have the filament up in the air, usually hanging at an angle like this, and I check on it periodically. If I'm starting to see this sag under the gravitational weight of itself, then I know it's too hot, this material is getting too soft. If you pull it out at that stage, you'll be fine. But if you leave it for too long, the problem is that your reel itself, all of these parts will start to weld to themselves. And so you'll pull it out of the machine or out of your oven or whatever and think, hey, it's great. You go to print and it snags on itself and will start ripping. And at that point, I'm sorry, you have to toss the whole reel. There's no really recovery from that. Filament drying is a really kind of sensitive thing. There is a balance between drying it and reaching, I apologize, it's slipping my mind right now. What's the term, Richard? The glass transition?
Glass transition, yes. That's correct.
And at that stage, if you're getting to the glass transition, you might as well be welding it to be a block, and then you're going to have to either send it off somewhere to be reground and run as filament, or you've lost your reel. So the reason why I like buying the Sultan in particular, but any food dehydrator, is for the most part they don't go above 70 degrees Celsius. And so although that's way too hot for PLA, it's pretty tolerant for other materials. So with that, when you're on Amazon and you're buying this product, get yourself one of those super cheap little temperature and humidity sensors. I don't have mine right handy right now, but they're like, in fact, I think on AliExpress, they're like $2 a pop. They're little battery-powered probes. You throw that inside your dehydrator and you monitor that, because that's going to tell you the ambient air temperature inside there. And that will help you determine where your nice 55, 60 degrees is, for instance, for PLA. Once you've found that with the dial, take your handy Sharpie that we talked about today and just draw a little tick. And then you can write in there PLA. So you know when you set it to that, that's going to be your PLA safe zone. That's correct. You know, it's funny that there was so much, and you know, I don't blame them for it, but you know, there was a lot of research, whether or not Sunlu took this design from somebody else or did it themselves. This design, someone spent a lot of time engineering it, but they didn't think about basic things like this, you know. So although the temperature control is real tight, it's not reflecting the actual drying. And there are things I could go on about this. Really, I don't want to make a video about it because I don't want to be bashing a brand, but I want to look at better ways. And what you guys are going to see coming up here, I actually am working on a under $10 filament dryer, and we're going to try it out and see if it works. And that's what the video is going to be. And if it works, awesome, I've made you a $10 solution. If it doesn't, well, we've learned something. And that's what this channel is going to be about, is learning. Either learning from our mistakes or learning from our successes. But we want to go and learn together with you guys.
Exactly. Now, here's one of my favorite questions. This one's coming from Colby Olson. He's asking, I'm looking to get started into 3D printing. Well, you've come to the right place, because that's what we teach, is 3D printing. What's a good entry-level printer that's easy to use for modeling minis? Now, there are two that I would look at. First and foremost would be the Ender 3 V2, a great starter printer for under $400. You can get them online. You can get them from our Amazon page. We have them in our Amazon store. However, there is another printer out there that's great for minis as well, but the learning curve is a little bit more intense, and that would be going with Creality LD-002R or the Photon from Anycubic. Or what's the one that you have? You have the Elegoo.
Elegoo Mars.
The Elegoo Mars.
So just so you guys know, when it comes to the resin world, the reason why we're not really biased, just so you know, is because Chi2 Systems is the only company right now making motherboards for them all.
Correct.
So we really haven't had any critiques to identify different ones. But if you stick with a name brand, that'll be good. But Richard, please go on about the resin, because I love it.
I do a lot of resin printing. And resin to me is a great way to make high quality, long lasting miniatures for your tabletop gaming. Now, where that comes into play is you're now dealing with a chemical, a liquid chemical that is harmful to the environment. If you spill it on yourself and you should be in any kind of UV light, it can cause damage to your skin. Most of the time it's pretty good, but some brands do smell. So you want to put it in an area that you can vent or has good ventilation. Secondly, you need proper PPE. You need a face mask because you don't want to breathe in those fumes. You have to wear rubber gloves when handling this material. It is a must. I don't care what anybody says. It is a must. And you are going to need some isopropyl alcohol to clean those minis. Now, I have found by going to Costco, this isopropyl alcohol is 99%, and you can get 4 bottles for about $10 or $15. I can't remember.
It's actually $10 Canadian for 4 at least.
Yeah.
So it's like $2.50 for a what would it be? 1/8 of a gallon, I guess, for our American friends. It's 500 milliliters, so it's half a liter. The only caveat I would say to this, and Richard might argue with me about this, is that you don't really need 99%.
No, you don't.
It actually, in fact, it's a good idea to usually mix it with a little bit of water, because distilled water, not tap water, because when isopropyl at 99%, it evaporates very quickly. And even at 99%, it has been known to leave a small film afterwards. So you can get the problem is when you go to a store, you're probably paying the same price for 70% as you are 100%. So you're actually gaining 30% if you just buy the 99% and add some distilled water and maybe a little bit of a detergent like a mean green or something just to help actually clean the surface. But the isopropyl is meant to make sure that surface is just minty clean afterwards. And if you add a little bit of the water, it's not going to evaporate as quickly. It's just, it's not a must do, but it's a nice to do.
Yeah, Ben says 90% of the time problems with a BL Touch is due to wiring issues. That's going back a ways. Trevor said he solved the issue. It was a wiring issue. And that's something that is usually a big problem. We have found in the past that the old Creality BL Touch kits came with really crappy wiring.
Yeah.
And the black wire, which is typically in their setup, your signal wire, was too thin. And if it got close to something that had a higher current, like the heater cartridge wiring, it would cause interference, and then you would have problems. By having a heavier gauge wire, it worked out. But now the wiring is a little bit thicker and it's better insulated. And I think that if you're buying a kit today, you usually get the right wires. But again, there is a lot of bad information out there about how the BL Touch should be installed. And even Creality is messed up, and we've seen that.
Yeah, and actually, for those of you who don't watch, other content, which thank you, but if you do, now I'm kind of tangled up here with paracord because this week or last week, because I'm losing track of time, Linus Tech Tips of all channels, a great Canadian tech guy. If you've never watched his stuff, he's doing a smart home upgrade, and one of the videos they were actually doing recently was how to build your own cables, notably for computers, things like USB cables and stuff. But this also applies to the 3D printing realm. And, no one's an expert. Everyone learns something new. And one of the things they were showing was how to use paracord to go and basically wrap around the outside of your cables to provide a nice shielding that's protected. Well, BL Touch is a great example of where you might want to go and make a braided, or make it hidden within a braided shield to kind of protect itself from the other cables. So I do have, and I just organized my office here. I've got the kit to make the 1.25 millimeter or whatever, 1 millimeter, I can't remember the spec, for BL Touch cables, and I've actually made a few very successfully lately. I'm going to try and use that technique to make a custom sheathed long BL Touch cable, and maybe we'll do a video on it there. But I highly recommend watching that video because it does talk about the basics of building cables, which I think is actually an invaluable skill when it comes to as you're building up 3D printers. Otherwise, you're going to have a boatload of interlocks and splices, and it introduces so many issues. It could be a video on its own. But please watch that video and just see if you can learn a little something on that.
Now, printers are not perfect. And we all know that. For those of us, and a lot of you guys in here can attest to what I'm about to say, they're never created perfect. And every one you get, even from the same manufacturer, can be a little bit different. So what I would suggest is that if you're going to be looking for a new printer, if you're just getting into the hobby, there are several people that we trust, and first and foremost is Creality. Anycubic is also a very good brand that we've used in the past. I've been using the Bluer Plus all summer long. Other than a heater cartridge issue recently that we had, that thing has just been going gangbusters, and it looks really good. It is it prints really well. I haven't had any issues with it. Actually, I printed some signs for a client using it. It is only a single head, but that's all we needed was a single color. So I would say that if you are getting into this, look at Creality first. Do your research if you're looking at other ones. If price is a big concern and you want to get under that 300, just remember that you're going to get what you pay for. And the same thing goes for your filament as well. Now, Brian and I both use Matter 3D filament, PLA, ABS, and their PETG. They are expanding their line. You'll always see them doing posts over on our Facebook page, and they are the only company right now that we allow just to have free reign on there to do what they want to do. So, because we love their material, we are actually adding it to our Shop the First Layer website. And when we do that, we'll be able to ship all over the world. But remember, they do have a very small catalog. It's very high quality material. And I urge everybody, if you haven't tried it yet, try it out. If you are in very humid areas, make sure that you dry the filament first.
And you know, because actually we didn't get bothered about this one, but I did want to share you guys with this. Matter 3D is having a Labor Day sale this weekend. So that you can actually, and you know what? I won't lie to you guys. I need to smack Almond Baines. Why? Because he spelled Labor Day the American way. And his discount code is the American way. So if you guys go, I'm going to put the code in the chat here. Matter3D.com. The code is Labor Day 20 at checkout for 20% off your order. So that is a ridiculously good deal for this stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and post the link here for you guys. And I encourage you, especially if you're experienced in printing, to look at some of their other offerings, because right now, I can't remember where I put it here. I'm a little bit disorganized, but I have a roll of carbon fiber PET G from Matter 3D, and I am so excited to use it. And I think the first experiment that we're going to attach it to is my work in progress DJI Phantom 3 Professional. So I've got a couple camera gimbal issues here, but hopefully in the future, because I am drone certified now, we should be able to get some awesome B-roll with this thing. But I want to put some 3D printed accessories on it, and I couldn't think of a better material than carbon fiber PET G. So we will be experimenting with that as soon as humanly possible.
Now, we are running out of time here, so here is something that you guys are going to see. We're going to show you the finished product first, and then we're going to probably start a brand new build in the new year when finances allow us to do that. But does anybody know what that symbol is for? That is the Voron symbol that will be going on the very back of my Voron, so you'll be able to see that. I have a couple of issues I have to work out. It's all fan related. Everything else works fine. But I do want to show you that printer when it's all sexy and looking good. And
just quick comment from Ben Brady. Do you all have Labor Day in Canada? It's fish holiday. We do, actually.
We do. Yeah.
Ironically, it lines up with the American holiday for once. So similar to how we have Remembrance Day and you have Veterans Day, Labor Day is common across the board. And actually, I got a Facebook memory the other day, so I want to remind you guys about this. Remember that Labor Day is to celebrate the hardworking efforts of people. If you have Labor Day off and you go out to any commercial establishment or anywhere and someone is working, be sure to thank them, because it's a holiday meant to respect laborers and all that. And if you have to work, it's not very fun. So be sure, if you're going out, to say thank you for your efforts and have a happy Labor Day. I know it's a little early because we're only 5 minutes here, but I just wanted to emphasize that Labor Day is meant to celebrate the hard working of people and to recognize people that do have to work on that day of rest. Thank them, please.
Yeah, Colby Olson says, in honor of all those people who work, we take the day off. Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of hypocritical, isn't it?
Although I don't get to take Monday off. I've got a lot of things to do. I'm working on one of Peter Reynolds' printers right now that is having a severe under extrusion issue. So, and it's identical on his other printer, which is the same model. So
we're going.
I'm going to do a video on it. Actually, it won't come out this week, but it will come out. And I'm going to show you how to solve that issue if it's something that's going on with you. The other thing I want to say to all of our viewers and those that will be watching this after the live stream, to all of our members, to all of you that stuck with us during the summer, thank you very much. It was very much appreciated. We do apologize for not getting the content out that we promised you. But
in our defense, we weren't even really printing much either, to be honest.
That's true.
It was actually, if we had something to showcase for you guys, we would have shown it. But I have had so much filament thrown out because of stupid issues on my side, to be honest with you. It's only now just getting back into place. In fact, I've got a piece of glass over here from Arion that I went and they said, oh yeah, you buy it and we'll refund you or whatever. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to buy it to try it. It's still got the plastic on it because I realized I didn't have any bloody clips anymore because I switched to magnetic bits. So
there you go.
Someone here has been too lazy to go out and buy things. It's just getting it rolling. You can see behind me here, one of my CR-10s is buried in filament. So we're just getting it back and rolling, but that's why we wanted to jump the gun and get these live streams rolling first and foremost in September to know you that we are back, we're rocking the content, and we're bringing you along for the ride, regardless of how much of a crash it may or may not be.
We got time for one more question here, and this is from the Bosk. He says, my CR-10S print starts to split at a certain height every time. What would cause this? Actually, the funny thing is that you're asking this question, and we are going to be covering this topic very soon. And there's many issues that can cause it. So stick with us. We don't really have time to get into all those issues right now, but suffice it to say, if it's happening at the same level are you using the same filament, maybe try switching out your filament, or it could be in the file. Those are the quick and easy ways to check. So try that first. Switch the filament. If it's happening in the same spot on a different filament, then it's possible it could be the file, or there might be something mechanically wrong with your printer. Okay? And
we pushed this message before, guys. It's time for your seasonal tune-up. It's time to go down and make sure there's not a bunch of grease built up on your rods. It's time to make sure that everything moves freely and moves as expected. Make sure your bolts are still tightened up because nobody uses Loctite Blue apparently. So yeah, just make sure it's time for that seasonal tune-up. We've got a couple videos on the channel. You can look them up. But we will also be doing a little walkthrough on our seasonal tune-up here as the temperatures start to shift downwards. Because just like your vehicle, temperatures impact metals. And We had summer days as hot as 40 degrees, and in Alberta, it's been known to go as low as minus 40 in the winter. So with all those changes, with metal contracting and expanding, it's always a good idea just to give your machine a good look over in between prints. Make sure, stroke it top to bottom. We like things like sewing machine oil. 3-in-1 lube, I think, is another one here. I've got Tri-Flow. Sorry, I'm super out of focus here, but Tri-Flow. I've heard great things about 3-in-1, but we don't get that regularly in Canada. It's a good time of year to just do a good refresher. Even if you've been printing fine, do another temperature tower. And just make sure that machine's humming right, and then you'll be good right through Christmas. If you have nuts and bolts that continually loosen, it's always a good idea to use a little bit of Loctite on them. However, I'm going to say that with a caveat, because Loctite cannot be used with acrylic parts, just so you know. So if you have an acrylic frame and you're trying to keep those nuts tight, do not use this, because it will eat through the acrylic and will make that acrylic very brittle. So with that being said, it's funny that you guys asked about maintenance and things like that. Peter Reynolds and I spent some time together the other day, and he was having a problem where one of the gears would just stop turning and it wouldn't be feeding through that filament. And what we discovered was that the needle bearings that he had on the machine were not sufficiently lubed up. So we lubed them up. Now everything seems to be running great. I will be talking to Peter in the next day or two just to find out exactly how things are going. But that is one of the things that you can do to check things. I'm going to go through a whole maintenance list with you guys on an upcoming video as well. Yeah, and it can happen to anything. And I'm sorry to kind of, I know we're trying to wrap it up here, but I have an actual Bondtech, a BMG Bondtech. The little basically it started seizing up. I didn't know because it had so much torque it was able to move through, but the bearing that sat on the top right here above the gear was fully seized when I pulled it out. So it was just grinding on itself and moving around. That was one of my many issues, and it's not something you would think is obvious because they're supposed to be sealed bearings. But this is all coming down to preventative maintenance versus reactive. And the reason we're pushing this message is right off the top of the show, I said it. You can't get parts right now, so you need to have some stuff on hand. Now, that being said, Richard and I, being partially idiots, really, is we've got a stockpile of parts that we'll probably never need. So we have some listings through Shop the First Layer, but I highly encourage you, especially if you are in the Calgary area or even in the Alberta area, if you need something on the fly and you don't see it on the website, send us a message. We probably have some spares, because our main focus is and has always been to get you up and operational as soon as possible again. Yes. And, this is a great example, again, of I had to wait 2 to 3 days for a PT100, and I got the last one available on Amazon. Now they're saying it's a month or so out. And based off what I've been learning about the chip shortages and stuff right now, I don't see it getting any better, unfortunately, for us. So stock up on the parts you need, and if you're stuck, please send us a message, because we do want to help you out, and we like to see printers being successful. We don't want you coming to us and paying us $60 an hour or whatever to repairing your machine every week. It doesn't really bring us that much pleasure. We'd rather see you have your machine working. There you go. With that said, again, thank you everybody for joining us today and our first show back after the summer. And we are going to see you again on Friday, all of our members, with a brand new episode, and Saturday for all public view. And we'll be here again next Sunday. I will be anyway. I don't know what Brian's schedule is. We are back to Sunday broadcasts here. For those of you who are asking, Sunday at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. I'm going to get these all right. But yes, we are back to Sundays. The reason why we did Thursdays was because we were full-time manning the Western 3D booth on weekends to get the exposure rolling before it goes to its autonomous setup, if you will. And there, you know, if you guys are members, if you want, or if you just want to chat, if you're curious about things on the group, I don't think we're going to do a video about our experience on it because it's not, number one, it's not very interesting.
Yeah.
But number two, you can talk for an hour and still not get a clear, concise answer. It's just each area is different. Yep. But, you know, we're okay with sharing our business experiences. That's not to say the business is gone, but we are just changing. We're just having a formal thing to keep it separate from the first layer because we don't want you guys to think that we are giving you content to sell you stuff. That's not our goal whatsoever. So those are two separate entities, and that's just the way it is. But as of right now, we are fully back on for our live streams on Sundays, and work permitting for myself, I will be here every Sunday. Actually, next Saturday, we have the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo, which I imagine is going to be, ever so fun. I only have a ticket for a Saturday, so unless something really bad happens to me, I have a feeling I'll be here next Sunday. But Richard will be for sure.
I will be here for sure. Now, just before I say goodbye, remember that today is National Cheese Pizza Day. So go everybody out and get a cheese pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Brian's gone. And remember, everybody, that happy Labor Day. And remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great
print.
See ya.
See ya.
We're out.